She believed in love and was left at the altar, alone. The rich groom ran away without looking back in the middle of the ceremony, but a lonely billionaire, scarred by grief, saw her cry. At that moment, something inside him also began to change. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. Helena adjusted her white dress for the last time in front of the mirror, while her grandmother, Senora Clara, put the last stitches on the hem of the dress that they had sewn together over the last few months. Every detail had been carefully thought out. Each hand-sewn pearl represented a love story that she believed to be true. Her brown eyes shone with anticipation as she watched her reflection in the mirror. "It's perfect, my dear," said Lady Clara, with tears in her eyes, adjusting the train of her dress. "You look as beautiful as a princess." Helena smiled, feeling her heart race. After 7 years of dating Raphael, heir to one of the most traditional families in the city, the big day had finally arrived. She had saved every penny of her salary as a teacher to make that dream come true, even when Raphael insisted that his family could pay for everything. "No, Grandma. I want to do it my way," Helena replied, running her hands over the delicate fabric. "Every stitch on this dress tells our story." The room was filled with flowers, and the soft scent of jasmine wafted in through the half-open window. On the dressing table, photos of her and Raphael told the story of their relationship, their first meeting in college, their trips, their special moments. Helena picked up one of the photos, caressing her fiancé's face with her fingertips. "It still seems like a dream to me," she whispered, more to herself than to her grandmother. Lady Clara approached, carefully adjusting her veil. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, my girl. You built all this with your own effort." Helena took a deep breath, remembering all the nights she had stayed up preparing classes, correcting papers, dreaming of the day she could have her own school. Raphael had always supported her dreams, even though her family turned up their noses at the fact that she was just a teacher. The sound of rain began softly outside, delicate drops hitting the window. Helena smiled, remembering the old superstition that rain on a wedding day brought good luck. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," Helena called, adjusting her dress one last time. Her best friend and godmother, Bianca, walked into the room with a radiant smile. "The car is waiting, beautiful, it's time." Helena felt butterflies in her stomach, that mixture of anxiety and happiness that made her heart want to jump out of her mouth. She picked up the bouquet of white roses that was on the bed and took one last look in the mirror. "Let's go," she said, determined. The drive to the church was silent, with only the sound of light rain accompanying her thoughts. Helena watched, the drops running down the car window, forming patterns that seemed to tell stories. Her heart beat at an irregular rhythm, as if she sensed something that her mind could not yet comprehend. The church was beautifully decorated, just as she had dreamed. White flowers adorned the pews, candles flickered, creating a romantic and welcoming atmosphere. The guests were all already in their places, murmuring among themselves, waiting for the bride to enter. Helena took another deep breath, squeezing her father's arm as the wedding march began to play. The church doors opened, and she began her walk to the altar where Raphael was supposed to be waiting. It should, but it wasn't. The murmur began softly, slowly growing like a wave. Helena continued walking, her steps getting slower and slower, as she saw the looks of pity multiplying. Her father gripped her arm tighter, as if he wanted to protect her from what was to come. The priest had an embarrassed expression. Raphael's family, sitting in the front rows, avoided looking directly at her. Bianca ran towards her, her eyes full of tears. "Helena," she began, but couldn't continue. The silence in the church was deafening. Helena let go of her father's arm and walked alone to the altar, her legs shaking with each step. There was no note, no explanation. Just the emptiness of the place where Raphael should have been. The rain began to fall harder outside, as if the sky were crying for her. Helena stood still, feeling the weight of the stairs, the whisper of conversations, the shame burning her face. The dress she had sewn with so much love now seemed to weigh a ton. Without saying a word, she turned and walked toward the exit. No one followed her. Maybe out of respect, maybe because they didn't know what to say. The rain greeted her outside, wetting her white dress, making the pearls shine like tears in the dim light of that grey afternoon. Helena walked aimlessly, letting the rain wash away her makeup, her dreams, her certainties. The fabric of her dress clung to her body like an unrequited hug as her steps took her away from the church, away from the people, away from everything she had planned for her life. The rain continued to fall when Helena finally stopped on a park bench. Her body was shaking, but she barely felt the cold. Drops of water ran down her face, mixing with the tears that were now flowing freely. Her dress, soaked, weighed like all the unfulfilled promises of that day. Across the street, Thomas Marquez watched the unusual scene through the window of his Mercedes. The businessman was returning from yet another boring meeting when something on the park bench caught his attention. A woman dressed as a bride, alone in the rain, looked like a sad painting in the middle of the urban landscape. Something about that image touched him deeply. Maybe it was the memories of his own history, the scars he carried, or simply the vulnerability of that woman who, even broken, maintained a quiet dignity in her posture. Without a second thought, Thomas asked the driver to stop. He grabbed his umbrella and crossed the street toward the bank. As he got closer, he could see the details of the handmade dress better, the delicate embroidery now weighed down by the water. "You shouldn't stand in the rain," he said softly, extending the umbrella over her. Helena looked up slowly. Her gaze met a tall man in an impeccable suit, with green eyes that held a familiar sadness. There was something about his presence that made her feel safe, even though he was a complete stranger. "Sometimes rain is necessary," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Thomas nodded, understanding the deeper meaning of those words. "Still, allow me to offer you shelter. I have a hotel nearby. No strings attached, no questions asked, just a dry, safe place." Helena hesitated for a moment. On any other day, she would never have accepted a stranger's offer. But right now, what difference did it make? Her world had already fallen apart anyway. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, still sitting. Thomas smiled slightly, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Let's just say I've been to the other side of the rain. Sometimes we need the kindness of strangers to find our way back." Helena stood up slowly, her wet dress making it difficult to move. Thomas held the umbrella over her, not caring that his own suit was starting to get wet. "I'm Thomas Marquez," he introduced himself as they walked towards the car. "Helena Silva," she replied, her voice still shaking. The driver opened the car door silently, and Helena hesitated again before getting in. Thomas noticed her apprehension. "My hotel is 3 blocks away. It's the Marquez Palace. You can call whoever you want as soon as we arrive, use the phone at reception, order a taxi. You don't have to trust me, just allow me to offer you a moment of peace." There was something in the way he spoke, a mixture of respect and understanding that made Helena accept. Inside the warm car, she watched the city pass by outside the window, the lights beginning to come on in the late, rainy afternoon. The Marquez Palace was one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. Helena had passed by it many times, but she had never imagined going in there, much less under these circumstances. Thomas discreetly led her through a side entrance, avoiding the curious glances in the lobby. "Selena," he called to one of the staff, "please get Mrs. Silva some dry clothes and prepare Suite 1001. Also have some hot tea and something to eat brought." The employee nodded immediately, without asking any questions, and led Helena to the elevator. Thomas stayed behind, respecting her space. "Anything you need, just ask at the front desk," he said before the elevator doors closed. "Stay as long as you need." In the suite, Helena found not only dry clothes but also toiletries and a soft robe. The room was larger than her entire apartment, with a panoramic view of the city that was now lit up in the persistent rain. She removed her wet dress, each pearl weighing like a frozen teardrop. Helena allowed herself, for the first time since leaving the church, to take a deep breath. Thomas's words echoed in her mind. "I've been on the other side of the rain." What story did this man carry? What pains had taught him to recognize pain in others? And why, amid the chaos of that day, did she feel that their encounter had not been just a coincidence? Dawn found Helena sitting in the suite's armchair, watching the city awaken through the huge window. She hadn't slept, but the hours of silence had given her a clarity she hadn't expected to find so soon. Her wedding dress, still damp, was carefully laid out on a chair, a silent reminder of the previous day. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Selina, the hotel clerk, bringing a full breakfast and an envelope. "Mr. Marquez asked me to deliver this," she said, placing the envelope on the tray. "He also left a message saying he'll be in the hotel restaurant at 10 Caud if you'd like to talk." Helena thanked him with a weak smile and opened the envelope as soon as she was alone. Inside was a card with a handwritten message in elegant calligraphy. "Sometimes the worst days of our lives are actually doors opening to something greater. T.M." As she sipped her coffee, Helena reflected on the past 24 hours. The abandonment at the altar, which should have destroyed her completely, had left something unexpected in its place, a sense of liberation that she could not explain. It was as if, along with the rain, a blindfold had also been washed from her eyes. At 10 o'clock sharp, after putting on the clothes Selina had provided, a simple but elegant outfit, Helena went down to the restaurant. Thomas was sitting at a discreet table, leafing through some documents. When he saw her, he immediately stood up. "Good morning," he greeted, pulling out a chair for her. "I hope you were able to get some rest." "I didn't actually sleep," Helena admitted, sitting up, "but the silence was necessary." Thomas gestured, and a waiter brought fresh coffee for them both. For a few moments they sat in silence, only the clinking of cups filling the space between them. "You know," Thomas began, his gaze fixed on his cup, "when I saw you yesterday, I recognized something familiar. That quiet determination of someone facing an internal storm." Helena looked up, meeting his gaze. "You mentioned that you've been on the other side of the rain. What did you mean by that?" Thomas took a deep breath as if organizing his thoughts. 5 years ago, I lost everything I thought was important. My wife, Sophia, was extraordinary. We had dreams together, projects. She wanted to transform an old mansion from the family foundation into a children's school. It was her big dream. "Was?" Helena asked softly, noting the use of the past tense. "An accident changed everything," he replied, his voice carrying a weight that Helena recognized. "Since then, the mansion has remained closed. I have not been able to continue the project. Until yesterday, when I saw it in the rain, something made me think that perhaps, maybe," Helena encouraged, intrigued. "I know you're a teacher," he said, surprising her. "Forgive me, but I asked Selina to find out a little about you. You're a respected, dedicated educator, exactly the kind of person Sophia was looking for to lead the school." Helena blinked in surprise. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a possibility," Thomas corrected. "The mansion needs renovation. The design needs to be developed from scratch. It would be a huge amount of work, but you would have complete creative freedom and all the support you need." "Why me?" Helena asked, still trying to process the proposal. "You barely know me." Thomas smiled, this time a smile that reached his eyes. "Sometimes we get to know people better in their moments of adversity than in years of superficial acquaintance. Yesterday I saw a woman who, even in the most difficult moment, maintained her dignity. Someone who, even when hurt, did not allow herself to be destroyed. That is exactly the kind of strength that a project like this needs." Helena took a sip of coffee, thoughtful. The proposal was tempting, not only as a professional opportunity, but as a chance to start over, far from the pitying looks, the gossip, the explanations she would have to give. "There's a cottage at the back of the property," Thomas continued. "You could live there while you oversee the renovation and develop the educational project. No pressure, no strict deadlines, just the chance to build something meaningful." "And where is this mansion?" Helena asked, surprising herself with her own interest. "In the mountainous region, 2 hours from here. It's a peaceful place, perfect for those who need space to think and create." Helena looked out the restaurant window, observing the city that held so many painful memories. The idea of getting away, of diving into a challenging project, was more tempting by the minute. "Can I think about it for a moment?" she asked. "Sure," Thomas replied, handing her a card. "Take your time. The room is at your disposal for as long as you like. And no matter what you decide, know that sometimes new beginnings come disguised as endings." When Thomas got up to leave, Helena called out to him, "Mr. Marquez." He turned around. "Thank you, not just for the shelter, but for seeing beyond appearances." Thomas nodded softly and left, leaving Helena with her thoughts and an important decision to make. The card in her hand seemed to weigh more than it should, loaded with possibilities and promises of a future that, until yesterday, she could not have imagined. After Thomas left, Helena spent the rest of the morning pacing the hotel, her thoughts racing. The luxury of the Marquez Palace contrasted sharply with her reality as a public school teacher, but it wasn't the material comforts that impressed her. It was the feeling of being on the brink of a major change. She went back to her room and picked up her wedding dress, still damp. Each hand-sewn pearl told a different story now. They were no longer symbols of a romantic dream, but reminders of her own strength, of working together with her grandmother, of the night spent creating something special. He picked up the phone and called Mrs. Clara. His grandmother answered on the first ring as if she had been expecting the call. "My little girl," her grandmother's caring voice wrapped around her like a hug. "I was so worried. Where are you?" "I'm fine, Grandma," Helena replied, feeling the tears come back to her eyes. "I'm safe. I need to tell you something." For the next hour, Helena recounted everything that had happened: the meeting with Thomas, the night at the hotel, and the unexpected proposal. Madame Clara listened in silence, only occasionally interrupting to ask pointed questions. "And what does your heart say, my daughter?" the grandmother finally asked. Helena took a deep breath, looking out the window. "Tell me I need this change. Grandma, not just to escape what happened, but to find myself again. This project, it seems bigger than me." "So you've already made your decision," said Mrs. Clara, with that wisdom that only grandmothers possess. "You're just looking for the courage to admit it. Don't you think it's crazy? Accepting a job offer from a stranger, moving to a city, I don't know." "Helena," Lady Clara's voice grew serious, "sometimes life presents us with unexpected paths just when we need them. Your grandfather always said that the best stories begin with a leap in the dark." The conversation with her grandmother brought the clarity Helena needed. After hanging up, she took a long shower, dressed carefully, and went down to the reception. Selina was there, as if she had been waiting for her. "I need to speak to Mr. Marquez," Helena said, her voice steady for the first time since the day before. "He left instructions for this case," Selina replied with a smile, handing her an envelope. "Inside is an address. A driver can take you there right now, if you wish." The address led to an office in the city's financial center. Thomas welcomed her into a room with panoramic views, where natural plants created a welcoming atmosphere amid the modernity of the space. "I accept," Helena said, before he could even say anything. "I accept the school challenge." Thomas's smile was genuine. "Great. When do you want to start?" "Today," she replied, surprising herself with her determination. "I just need to get a few things from home and say goodbye to my grandmother." "Are you sure you don't want to think about it a little more?" Helena shook her head. "The more I think about it, the more likely I am to give up. Sometimes we need to follow our instincts." Thomas nodded understandingly. He opened a drawer and took out a folder of documents. "Here's everything. Employment, contract deed to the cottage, plans for the mansion, foundation documents. I want you to understand exactly what you're getting into." Over the next few hours, they discussed the details of the project. With each new piece of information, Helena felt her excitement grow. The mansion needed complete renovation, but the potential was immense. The grounds were extensive, with green areas that could be transformed into wonderful educational spaces. "I only have one condition," Helena said as they were finishing the paperwork. Thomas raised his eyebrows curiously. I want total freedom to develop the pedagogical project, without interference from the foundation or third parties. Granted, Thomas replied immediately. That's exactly how Sophia wanted it to be. At the end of the afternoon, when Helena left the office with a folder full of documents and the keys to the cottage, she felt different from the woman who had been left at the altar the day before. A new energy pulsed in her chest, the energy of someone who is about to begin a great adventure. In the taxi on the way home, he typed a message to Bianca. Friend, I need to tell you something. I'm going to start a new life, and this time, it's going to be my way. 2 weeks later, Helena looked at the cottage that would be her new home, enchanted by the place's mix of rusticity and charm. The wooden building, painted in soft shades of blue and white, looked like something out of a fairy tale. A climbing plant with small purple flowers covered part of the facade, and the garden, although in need of care, had a romantic and wild air. It's more beautiful than I imagined, she said to Thomas, who accompanied her on her first official visit to the property. Sophia loved this place, he replied, unlocking the front door. She used, to say this was where dreams were cultivated. The interior of the cottage was even more charming. A cozy living room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen equipped with rustic wooden cabinets, and a spiral staircase leading to the bedroom upstairs. Large windows let in natural light from all sides, creating a warm and bright atmosphere. I've had it thoroughly cleaned and some basic repairs done, Thomas explained, as Helena explored every nook and cranny. But you can decorate it however you like. The important thing is that it feels like home. Helena climbed the spiral staircase, her fingers gliding along the polished wooden banister. The room was spacious, with a bay window that offered a privileged view of the garden and, in the background, the mansion that would be transformed into the school. I want to see the mansion, she said, her professional side already kicking. Yes, I need to get a sense of the scale of the challenge ahead. Thomas nodded, and together they crossed the garden towards the main building. The mansion was an imposing structure from the early 20th century, with architectural features that mixed various elements. Despite its state of abandonment, its beauty was still evident. Why was it closed for so long? Helena asked as they climbed the steps to the main entrance. Thomas hesitated for a moment before answering. After Sophia left, I couldn't continue with the project. It felt wrong, somehow. But now, seeing your enthusiasm, I'm beginning to understand that maybe you were just waiting for the right person. The interior of the mansion was a mix of grandeur and melancholy. Furniture covered in white sheets looked like silent ghosts, and dust danced in the light that entered through the tall windows. Helena walked slowly, her footsteps echoing across the wooden floor, her mind already transforming each space into classrooms, libraries, living areas. This room, she said, pausing at a particularly spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows, would be perfect for a library. I imagine bookshelves to the ceiling, colorful cushions on the floor, a storytelling space in the corner. Thomas watched silently as she moved around the space, gesturing and describing her vision. There was an infectious energy in her enthusiasm, a force that seemed to breathe new life into this long-dormant place. And here, Helena continued, entering another room, could be the art studio. The natural light is perfect, and we could install sinks along this wall for activities with paints and clay. You already have it all planned out in your head, don't you? Thomas asked, a soft smile on his lips. Ideas are actually coming. To me now, she replied, her eyes shining. It's like the space is telling me what it wants to be. Each room has its own personality, you know. They continued exploring for a few more hours. Helena took notes in her notebook, took photos, with her cell phone and measured spaces with long strides. Her enthusiasm was so genuine that Thomas found himself seeing the mansion in a different light, as if the possibilities she described were already materializing. In the late afternoon, they sat on the steps of the main entrance, watching the sun set behind the trees in the garden. Helena leafed through her notebook, now full of sketches and notes. It's going to take a good renovation team, she said thoughtfully. And we also need to think about the educational project before we start the adaptations. Each space needs to be in line with our educational proposal. Wow? Thomas asked, noticing the pronoun. Helena blushed slightly. Sorry, I got carried away. Your project, of course. No, he interrupted softly. That's right. This project. There's now as much yours as it is mine. In fact, perhaps it's more yours than mine. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the birdsong as they retreated for the night. Helena took a deep breath, feeling the pure mountain air fill her lungs. It was strange how, in just a few hours, that place already felt more like home than the apartment where she had lived for the past few years. Tomorrow I'll start working on the educational project, she said finally, standing up. But today I just want to feel this place. Get to know every corner of the cottage, unpack my things, make this my new home. Thomas stood up as well, pulling an envelope from his pocket. Here are all the contacts you might need. Architects, engineers, reliable suppliers. But don't feel pressured. Do everything in your own time. When Thomas had left, Helena returned to the cottage, her cottage. Night was falling, and she turned on all the lights, wanting to see how the house behaved in the darkness. It was different. From the modern apartment where she had lived, different from her parents' house, different from anything she had ever known. But somehow, it felt exactly where it should be. The following days brought a routine that Helena didn't know she needed so much. She woke up early to the sound of birdsong, had coffee on the balcony of the cottage watching the sunrise, and then immersed herself in her work. The mansion gradually revealed its secrets, and each discovery fueled her inspiration for the project even more. One particularly sunny morning, while exploring one of the rooms on the second floor, Helena came across something interesting. A small door, almost hidden behind an old tapestry. Opening it, she discovered a room that appeared to have been used as a studio. There were dust-covered easels, dried brushes in glass jars, and most striking of all, a sketchbook on a table. Carefully, Helena opened the notebook. The pages were filled with sketches of a school, meticulously planned. They were Sophia's. Drawings, she realized with a start. Each page revealed a little more of the vision that the former owner had for the place. Circular rooms to encourage interaction, themed gardens, living spaces that mixed nature and learning. Amazing, Helena murmured, flipping through the pages with reverence. Sophia's ideas were surprisingly aligned with her own vision of education. It was as if somehow their dreams had intertwined across time. He decided to take his notebook to study better in the cabin. As he was going down the stairs, his phone rang. It was Bianca. "So, how's life in the country?" her friend asked, her voice thick with curiosity. "It's wonderful," Helena replied, sitting down on one of the steps. "Every day I discover something new. This place has a special energy." "And what about Thomas Marquez? What is he like in person?" Helena hesitated. "He's different. He's not the typical cold businessman we imagine. There's a sensitivity to him, a deep understanding of what we want to create here." "Do we want to?" Bianca teased, and Helena could imagine her friend's mischievous smile. "Has it become a joint project?" "It's nothing like that," Helena defended herself, feeling her cheeks flush even though she was alone. "It's a professional project. Thomas has just been respectful and considerate." "If you say so," Bianca hummed. "But seriously now, you sound fine. Your voice is different, lighter." It was true. Helena felt different. The abandonment at the altar, which just a few weeks ago had seemed to have destroyed her world, now seemed like a necessary detour in her path, as if the universe had conspired to put her exactly where she was supposed to be. After hanging up, Helena returned to the cabin and began working on the educational project inspired by Sophia's drawings. The hours flew by as she developed her vision for the school, combining elements from the sketches she found with her own innovative ideas. Late in the afternoon, Thomas came for a visit. He found Helena sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by papers, books, and her notebook. "Sorry about the mess," she said, trying to organize her papers. "When I get into creative mode, I lose track of space." Don't worry, he smiled, sitting down in an armchair. It's good to see this place coming to life. Helena hesitated for a moment before showing the notebook she had found. Look what I discovered today. Thomas picked up the notebook carefully, his eyes softening, as he recognized the drawings. Sophia's studio. I should have known you'd find it. Her ideas were amazing, Helena said softly. It would be an honor to incorporate some of these concepts into our project, if you would allow it. Thomas flipped through his notebook in silence for a few moments before answering. Sophia always said that a school should be a living organism, constantly evolving. I think she would be happy to see her ideas being transformed and adapted by someone who shares her passion. Helena felt her eyes water at the implicit trust in those words. I promise to live up to her dream. No, Thomas said, closing the notebook carefully. Live up to your own dream, that's what Sophia would have wanted. When Thomas left, the sky was already painted with the colors of dusk. Helena returned to her work with renewed energy, feeling connected not only to the project, but to something bigger. It was as if each page she wrote, each idea she developed, was a step towards not only the realization of a professional dream, but the construction of her own story of overcoming and rebirth. A month had passed since Helena had moved into the cottage. Renovations on the mansion were about to begin, and she spent her days finalizing the educational project while overseeing visits from architects and engineers. One particularly busy afternoon, while organizing a pile of donated books that were beginning to arrive for the future library, she found something unexpected, a yellowed envelope lying between the pages of an old book. Her heart stopped for a moment when she recognized the handwriting on the envelope. It was from Raphael, her ex-fiancé. The date on the envelope indicated the day of the wedding that never happened. With trembling hands, Helena opened the letter she had never received. Dear Helena, by the time you read this letter, I will be long gone. Not by choice, but out of cowardice, in the face of pressure from my family. They never accepted that I would marry someone who was just a teacher. I tried to fight, but the weight of the threats to disinherit me and cut off all my family ties was greater than my courage. This letter was supposed to be delivered to you at the church by a family official, but something went wrong. I want you to know that I didn't stop loving you. I just wasn't strong enough to face everything and everyone for our love. With all my regret. Raphael. Helena let the letter fall into her lap, a whirlwind of emotions taking over her chest. It wasn't just Raphael's words that affected her, but the realization of how her life had changed since that day in the church. The pain that had once seemed unbearable was now just a distant echo, like a song that could no longer touch her heart. Darin Thii. Sound of footsteps on the porch brought her back to reality. It was Thomas who had become a constant presence in her afternoons. I brought coffee, he announced, coming in with a tray. He stopped when he saw the expression on Helena's face. Is something the matter? Helena hesitated for a moment before handing the letter to him. Thomas read it silently, his face remaining impassive. How do you feel? He asked softly, handing back the letter. Strangely peaceful, Helena replied, surprising herself. It's as if this letter came exactly when it was supposed to, when it can no longer hurt me. Thomas sat down next to her on the couch, pouring 2 cups of coffee. Sometimes the universe has its own timing to show us certain truths. Do you know what's most interesting? Helena continued, picking up her cup. If he hadn't abandoned me that day, I would never have come this far. I would never have discovered my own strength. I would never have known this place. I would never have had the chance to fulfill a dream bigger than myself. And we never would have met, Thomas finished, his gaze meeting hers for an intense moment. Helena felt her heart race at those words, at his closeness, at the intimacy that had naturally developed between them over the course of that month. It was unlike anything she had ever felt before, more mature, deeper, built on foundations of mutual respect and admiration. Look at this, she said, breaking the moment and pulling out her notes. I found some old drawings of Sophia's. That inspired an idea for the music space. We can create a natural amphitheater by taking advantage of the slope of the land. Thomas smiled, acknowledging her attempt to change the subject, but accepting the new direction of the conversation. They spent the next few hours discussing projects and possibilities, Raphael's letter forgotten among the books. Later, after Thomas had left, Helena went upstairs to her room in the cottage and sat in the bay window, her favorite place for reflection. The full moon was shining over the garden, casting soft shadows among the trees. She took out her journal and began to write. Today the past knocked on my door, but it no longer found the same woman to welcome it. The Helena who was abandoned at the altar died on that rainy day, and in her place was born someone stronger, more self-assured, more aware of her own worth. So it's funny how life has its own ways of guiding us to where we need to be. I look out my window at the mansion and see not just a professional design, but a symbol of transformation. Every room we planned, every detail we discussed, every dream we shared, it has shown me that sometimes we have to lose something we thought was essential to find something that is truly fundamental. A movement in the garden caught her eye. A fox was calmly crossing the lawn, its silver fur shining in the moonlight. Helena smiled at the sight, another of the small gifts her new life had given her. She closed the diary and took a deep breath. Feeling a growing certainty in her heart, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Construction on the mansion began on a sunny Monday. Helena watched from the porch of the cottage as trucks and workers arrived, bringing with them the promise of transformation. The educational project was nearly complete, and she could hardly wait to see her ideas take physical form. "It's amazing how everything has changed in such a short time," commented Bianca, who had come to spend the weekend with her friend and decided to stay a few more days to see the start of the renovations. "Sometimes I can't even believe it myself," Helena replied, pouring more coffee for both of them. "Did you know we already have a waiting list of interested parents? And the school doesn't even physically exist yet. And how could you not be interested? An innovative school, surrounded by nature, with a unique pedagogical proposal. You created something special here, Lena." Helena smiled, watching the workers begin to assemble the scaffolding. "We did. Thomas has been an incredible partner in all of this." "Speaking of Thomas," Bianca began with a mischievous smile, "I couldn't help but notice the looks between you two yesterday at dinner." Helena felt her cheeks flush. The night before, Thomas had organized a dinner to celebrate the start of construction and had brought his private chef to prepare a special meal at the cottage. "It's not what you think," Helena defended herself, but her voice betrayed her uncertainty. "It's a professional relationship." "Professional?" Bianca teased. "Helena, I've known you for years. I've never seen your eyes shine like that when you talk about someone, not even with Raphael." Before Helena could respond, a commotion at the entrance to the estate caught her attention. A luxurious car she didn't recognize had just driven through the gates. "Who could it be?" Helena murmured, standing up to get a better look. An elegant woman stepped out of the car, her bearing exuding authority. Her high heels sank lightly into the grass as she walked toward the mansion, completely ignoring the cottage and its occupants. "That's Victoria Marquez," explained Thomas, who had just arrived without them noticing. "My cousin and a board member of the foundation." Helena noticed a tension in his voice that she had never noticed before. "She doesn't seem very happy with the works." "Victoria always had her own ideas about what should be done with the mansion," Thomas replied, his gaze following his cousin, who was now in heated conversation with the foreman. "She never accepted that Sophia wanted to turn it into a school." "What now?" Helena asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "Now she'll have to accept it," Thomas said firmly. "This project is no longer just a dream. It's a reality in the making, and you're doing an exceptional job." Victoria finally noticed their presence on the cottage's porch and began walking towards them. Her gaze assessed Helena from top to bottom, as if she were sizing up an opponent. "So this is the famous teacher," she said, her voice thick with barely concealed disdain. "Thomas's new protégé." "Helena Silva," she introduced herself, maintaining her composure. "Educational director of the project." "Project?" Victoria laughed humorlessly. "This is a historic Marquez family property, not an educational playground. Thomas, we need to talk about some irregularities I found in the documentation. Any issues can be discussed at the next council meeting," Thomas replied coolly. "Where, by the way, you approved this project 3 weeks ago." Victoria narrowed her eyes. "I approved based on incomplete information. I didn't realize you were handing over full control to a stranger." "Helena is not a stranger," Bianca interjected, surprising everyone. "She is a respected educator with an impressive resume. Perhaps you should do some research before making judgments." Victoria gave Bianca an icy glare before turning back to Thomas. "This isn't over. We have a reputation to uphold." After her departure, a heavy silence fell over the balcony. Helena felt her heart beating faster, not from fear, but from determination. "I won't let her get in the way of our work," he said finally, his voice firm. "We're building something important here." Thomas took her hand, squeezing it lightly. "Neither do I. Victoria may be on the board, but this foundation is my responsibility. And I believe in you, Helena. I believe in what we are creating. Together." The warmth of his hand, the use of the word together, the intensity of his gaze, all of it made Helena's heart race for entirely different reasons now. Bianca cleared her throat discreetly, reminding them of her presence. "Well," she said with a smile, "I guess now we have one more reason to make this school an absolute success, don't we?" Helena nodded, still feeling the warmth of Thomas's hand in hers. Victoria Marquez might be a formidable opponent, but she had faced and overcome worse. This project was bigger than any personal rivalry. It was about turning dreams into reality, about creating a space where children could grow and learn in freedom. And maybe it was also about letting her own heart learn to trust and love again. The following weeks brought a hectic pace of work. Helena threw herself headlong into supervising the construction work while continuing to develop the educational program. The mansion began to take on new life, its ancient walls revealing surprises each day. Some pleasant, like the beautiful frescoes uncovered beneath layers of wallpaper, others challenging, like the electrical wiring that needed to be completely redone. One particularly busy afternoon, as Helena was overseeing the installation of new windows in the future library, her phone rang. It was Bianca, her voice thick with concern. "Lena, you have to see this," she said without preamble. "Someone posted a video of your wedding day on social media." Helena felt her blood run cold. "What do you mean?" One of the guests recorded, "Everything. The moment you found out Raphael wasn't coming, you're leaving the church and it's all there. The video is going viral." With trembling hands, Helena opened her social media accounts. The video was everywhere, shared thousands of times. Supportive comments mixed with malicious speculation. Her personal story, her private pain, had become public entertainment. "There's more," Bianca continued hesitantly. "Raphael gave an interview. He's using the exposure of the video to try to contact you." At that moment, a loud thunderclap shook the windows of the mansion. A storm was approaching, the sky darkening rapidly. Helena watched the first drops of rain, a feeling of déjà vu taking over her. "I have to go, B," she said, her voice distant. "The storm is coming and I need to make sure everything is safe at the construction site." He hung up the phone and began coordinating the closing of the construction site for the day, his mind running on automatic. Workers scurried to secure materials and equipment as the wind began to blow harder. "Helena?" Thomas's voice cut through the noise of the storm. He was running toward her, shielding himself from the rain with a briefcase. "Let's go to the cabin, you're going to get all wet." In the warmth of the cottage, Helena shivered, but not from the cold. Thomas lit the fire while she made tea for them both, a ritual they had developed naturally over the past few months. "Did you see?" she asked finally, sitting down on the couch. "I did," he replied softly. "Victoria alerted me to the video this morning." Helena looked up in surprise. "Victoria?" "She may not approve of our project, but she's still family. She wanted to warn me before the press started making connections between you and the foundation. She thinks this will harm the school was not a question." Thomas sat down beside her, taking her hands in his. "What Victoria thinks doesn't matter. What matters is how you're feeling. The storm raged outside, but inside the cottage, in the warmth of the fireplace and with Thomas's hands holding hers, Helena found the clarity she needed. "You know what's weird?" she began, her voice gaining strength. "Watching that video was like watching someone else's story. That Helena in the soaked dress running in the rain, she seems so distant now." Thomas squeezed her hands lightly, encouraging her to continue. "When Raphael left me, I thought my life was over. But look at all this." She gestured toward the windows through which the mansion could be seen. "That day wasn't an end. It was a beginning. Every brick of that renovation, every page of the pedagogical project, every small decision we made, all of this is so much bigger than any failed love story." "You are extraordinary," Thomas said, his voice thick with admiration. "I knew it from that first day when I saw you sitting on that park bench." The intensity of his gaze made Helena's heart race. The storm continued outside, but inside the cottage time seemed to have stopped. She could feel the heat of his hands in hers, see the reflection of the flames in the fireplace in his eyes, notice how their faces had grown closer, without either of them realizing it. The moment was interrupted by the ringing of Helena's phone. It was a message from her grandmother. "My dear, I saw the video, but I also saw the pictures of the school project that you sent me yesterday. You turned tears into dreams, my girl. Don't let the past overshadow the brightness of your present." Helena smiled, feeling her eyes well up. Thomas gently released her hands to pour more tea, giving her a moment to compose herself. "Your grandmother is right," he said, handing her the cup. "You have changed not only your own history, but you are changing the history of this place, the history of all the children who will study here." The rain was beginning to ease outside, and a rainbow appeared on the horizon, its soft colors painting the still, cloudy sky. Helena stood up and walked to the window, observing the natural phenomenon that seemed so appropriate for the moment. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice firm, "we will give an interview. I will tell my story my way, not as the jilted bride, but as the educator who has found her true path, and I will present to the world the project of our school." Thomas joined her at the window, his arm brushing lightly against hers. "Our school," he repeated softly, and in those two words Helena felt the full significance of her journey here. The interview was scheduled for the following morning in the gardens of the mansion. Helena carefully chose every detail, the location, with the school building in the background symbolizing transformation and renewal. Her attire professional but welcoming, and most importantly her words, which she had rehearsed during the night. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Thomas asked as the film crew set up their equipment. "I've never been so sure," Helena replied, adjusting her pale blue blouse. "It's time to retell this story in my own words." The journalist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, arrived punctually. After initial introductions, they sat down in a strategically positioned set of chairs with the mansion under renovation as their backdrop. "So, Helena," the journalist began, "your wedding video has touched thousands of people. How does it feel to see your story touching so many hearts?" Helena smiled serenely. "You know, that video shows just one moment, one chapter in a much larger story. What people didn't see was what happened next, how that apparent ending turned into a new beginning." "And what new beginning was that?" Helena gestured toward the mansion. "This project, this school we're building, isn't just a building or an educational institution. It's a symbol of how we can turn our most difficult experiences into something meaningful and positive." The interview flowed naturally, with Helena sharing her vision for the school, explaining the innovative pedagogical project and how each space was being designed to stimulate learning and creativity. "And how did you meet Thomas Marquez?" asked the journalist, her perceptive gaze capturing the way the two interacted. "Thomas showed up at the exact moment I needed, not a savior, but someone who believed in my professional potential," Helena replied, exchanging a meaningful look. "With him, he saw beyond the woman in the wet dress and recognized the passionate educator I've always been." The journalist smiled, taking notes. "What about Raphael? He expressed interest in a reunion after the video went viral." "The past has its place and its purpose," Helena replied calmly. "Raphael made his choices and I made mine. Today my focus is on the future we are building here. After the interview, while the team was dismantling the equipment, Victoria Marquez appeared unexpectedly. Her normally critical expression looked different. "Impressive," she said, approaching Helena. "You turned a potential crisis into an opportunity to publicize the project. Maybe I underestimated you." Helena stared at Victoria, noticing for the first time a vulnerability behind her haughty facade. It was never about proving anything to anyone. It's about creating something meaningful. "Sophia would say the same," Victoria commented, softly, surprising everyone. She also had that sparkle in her eyes when she talked about education. Thomas watched the interaction with interest, as if a new understanding was forming there. "Perhaps," Victoria began hesitantly, "we could set up a meeting to discuss some ideas I have for the scholarship program. It's always been an area of interest for me at the foundation." Helena felt a sincere smile form on her lips. "I'd love to hear your ideas." After everyone had left, Helena and Thomas walked through the gardens, watching the afternoon sun gild the walls of the mansion under renovation. "You keep surprising me," Thomas said, stopping beneath an ancient tree. "Like this?" "The way you handled it all, the video, the interview, even Victoria. You turned every obstacle into a stepping stone to something bigger." Helena felt her heart race at his proximity, at the intensity of his gaze. "I learned that sometimes we need to lose something we thought was essential to find something truly fundamental." "And what did you find?" Thomas asked, his voice low and intense. Helena took a deep breath, gathering the courage to express what had been growing in her heart for months. "I found my purpose. I found a place to call home, and I found—" Her words were interrupted by the soft touch of Thomas's lips on hers. The kiss was gentle, respectful, loaded with all the feelings that had grown between them over those months of working together, sharing confidences and dreams built side by side. When they parted, the smile on Helena's face reflected not only the joy of that moment, but the peace of someone who had finally found her true path. On the horizon, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with colors that seemed to celebrate not only the end of a day, but the beginning of a new phase in her life. The weeks that followed brought a different routine to the cottage. Helena and Thomas had found their own rhythm, sharing breakfasts on the porch, long conversations in the evenings, and stolen kisses between work meetings. Construction on the school was progressing quickly, and the community's interest grew every day. One particularly hectic morning, Helena woke up feeling strange. A sudden feeling of discomfort made her run to the bathroom, where she remained for a few minutes trying to compose herself. When she finally managed to get up, a suspicion began to form in her mind. "It can't be," he muttered to his reflection in the mirror. But she could. And she was. 3 drugstore tests and a visit to the doctor later, Helena was sure. She was pregnant. The news took her completely by surprise, although an inexplicable joy began to take hold of her heart. "How am I going to tell Thomas?" she wondered, sitting in her favorite bay window, watching the sunset. As if in answer to her thoughts, Thomas arrived at that moment, bringing with him updated plans of the renovation and a package of chocolate chip cookies that she loved so much. "I thought we'd have a picnic in the garden," he suggested, noticing her thoughtful expression. "The weather is perfect, and we need to check these plants." Helena smiled, feeling her heart race. "I love that idea." She helped him spread a blanket on the grass, next to a patch of wildflowers she had planted when she arrived. The soft scent of the flowers mingled with the smell of the damp earth of the freshly watered garden. Thomas began to explain the changes in the plants, but Helena could barely concentrate. Her thoughts were focused on the small life growing inside her and how this news would change everything. "Helena," Thomas's voice brought her back to reality. "Are you okay? You seem distant." It was now or never. Helena took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Thomas, I need to tell you something," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "Something unexpected happened." Before he could continue, they were interrupted by hurried footsteps. It was Selena, the hotel employee, running towards him with an envelope in her hands. "Mr. Marquez, Miss Helena." Sorry to interrupt, but this just came from the foundation board. It's urgent. Thomas opened the envelope, his expression changing as he read the contents. Helena felt her stomach tighten. Was this another problem with Victoria? To his surprise, a smile began to form on Thomas's face. This is the final approval from the board, he explained, handing the documents to Helena. Not just for the school, but for a full scholarship program. Victoria has managed to convince all the members to support the project fully. Helena took the papers, with trembling hands reading quickly. The scholarship program was more ambitious than anything they had dreamed of. It would guarantee access to quality education for dozens of children in the community. That's amazing, she whispered, feeling tears of emotion form in her eyes. Helena, Thomas looked at her with concern. Are you crying? It's hormones, she replied without thinking, and immediately put her hand over her mouth, realizing what she had said. Thomas froze, his eyes slowly widening as he processed the information. Hormones? He repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Helena nodded, a nervous smile playing on her lips. This isn't how I planned to tell you, but we're pregnant. The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Thomas looked at her as if he were seeing her for the first time, a myriad of emotions flashing across his face. A baby? His voice was thick with emotion. We're going to have a baby. Helena confirmed again, tears now streaming freely down her face. I found out today. I was trying to find the right moment to... Her words were cut off when Thomas pulled her into a tight hug, lifting her off the ground and spinning her in the air. His laughter of pure joy echoed through the garden. Be careful, Helena protested with a laugh. Now you have to be doubly careful with me. Thomas gently placed her on the ground, but kept his arms around her. His eyes shone in a way Helena had never seen before. A baby, he repeated, as if savoring the words. Our baby. Helena, do you have any idea how much that means? She knew. That child was not just a baby, it was a symbol of new beginnings, of love reborn, of dreams, coming true in unexpected ways. The school will be ready when he is born, Thomas said, his mind already planning for the future. Our son will grow up watching this dream come true. He will be part of this story from the beginning. Or daughter, Helena corrected with a smile. Or daughter, he agreed, kissing her softly. What matters is that it will be perfect, because it will be ours. The sun was beginning to set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. There in the garden that had become her home, embracing the man who had restored her faith in love, Helena felt a deep certainty. Sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as surprises from the heart. The news of the pregnancy spread quickly among those closest to her. Senora Clara was the first to arrive at the cottage, bringing with her not only her tight embrace, but also a small bundle of thread and needles. To start the trousseau, she explained, her eyes shining with happiness. Just as we made your wedding dress, we will create each piece with love. Helena felt her heart tighten with emotion as she saw her grandmother already planning the little onesies and shoes. The mention of the wedding dress, which had previously brought back painful memories, now seemed like just a necessary chapter in her story. Victoria also appeared, surprising everyone with a gift, an antique crib, delicately carved in fine wood. It was Sophia's, she explained, her voice soft. She always said it would one day be worn by a special child. I think we've finally found that child. The gesture touched Thomas and Helena deeply. It was as if the last wall between them and Victoria had finally fallen, replaced by a bridge of understanding and affection. Construction on the school continued at full speed, now with an even greater sense of urgency. Helena supervised everything with the same enthusiasm as always, although Thomas insisted that she slow down. I'm pregnant, not sick, she protested as they walked together through the construction site. Besides, I want our baby to be born, while the school is already in session. On a particularly busy afternoon, while they were discussing the final details of the auditorium, Helena felt the baby's first movement. It was like a little butterfly flapping its wings in her womb. Thomas, she called, taking his hand and placing it on her still small belly. Wait a minute. The baby moved again, as if it knew it was being waited for. Thomas's eyes filled with tears as he felt the gentle movement beneath his palm. "It's real," he whispered in wonder. "So real." At that moment, a group of people approached the property's gate. They were families from the region, bringing books to donate to the school's future library. "We just found out about the pregnancy," said one of the mothers, handing over a bag full of children's books. "These were my children's, but now they can help other children discover a love of reading." The community's spontaneous gesture touched Helena deeply. The school had not even started operating yet, but it was already fulfilling its role of bringing people together, creating bonds, and transforming lives. At night, sitting on the cottage's porch, Helena and Thomas talked about the day's events while looking at the starry sky. "Did you know that some of these stars we see no longer exist?" Thomas commented. "The light we see is just their history reaching us." Helena smiled, stroking her belly gently. "Like our story, the abandonment at the altar, the rain, our meeting, is all of this now just starlight that brought us here?" "No," he replied, taking her hand. "Our story is just beginning, and unlike those stars, it is more alive than ever." A soft kick from the baby seemed to agree with her words, making them both laugh. Helena rested her head on Thomas's shoulder, feeling completely at peace. "I never imagined it could be like this," she confessed. "So I still right, like every piece of the puzzle had finally found its place." "Including the pieces that didn't seem to fit," Thomas added. "Like Victoria." "She surprised me," Helena admitted. "Sophia's crib. It was such a meaningful gesture." Victoria is learning, as we all are, that family is not just about blood ties. It's about choices, about love, about building something together. Helena nodded, thinking about how her own definition of family had expanded in the past few months. It was no longer just her and her grandmother. It now included Thomas, Victoria, the community that was forming around the school, and the little being growing in her womb. "In the end," she said softly, "I think that's what we're building here. Not just a school, but a place where people can reconnect with their dreams, where they can find their true home." Thomas kissed her forehead affectionately, and to think it all started with a bride in the rain. "And a man who had the courage to stop his car," she added, smiling. The baby moved again, as if he wanted to join the conversation. Helena closed her eyes, keeping that moment in her heart. Outside, the stars continued their eternal ballet in the sky, silent witnesses to yet another chapter in this story of new beginnings and discoveries. The months passed quickly, and with them, the school began to take on its final form. Helena, now 7 months pregnant, coordinated the final preparations for the opening while stroking her prominent belly. Autumn painted the garden with golden hues, creating a magical atmosphere around the renovated mansion. "The auditorium is ready," Thomas announced, entering what would be the principal's office where Helena was organizing documents. "And you should be resting." Helena smiled, settling back into her chair. "I can't rest now. The National Award Ceremony for Educational Projects is tomorrow, and then we have the school inauguration. These are crucial moments." Thomas came closer, gently massaging her shoulders. "That's exactly why you need to rest. I don't want you and our little Clara Helena getting too tired." The name chosen for the baby had been a tribute to both Helena's and Sophia's grandmother, a way to honor the past while celebrating the future. Victoria, upon learning of the choice, had cried for the first time in front of them. "Speaking of Clara Helena," Helena said, picking up an envelope from her desk, "look what arrived today." It was the last ultrasound, clearly showing the baby's face. Thomas took the image carefully, his eyes shining with emotion, as they always did when he saw a new photo of his daughter. "She has your nose," he commented, making Helena laugh. "Thomas, you can barely see clearly in this picture." "But I know you do," he insisted, kissing the top of her head. "Just as I know you'll be as determined as you are." A movement at the door caught their attention. It was Bianca, carrying a stack of papers. "Sorry to interrupt the family moment," she said with a smile, "but we need to finish the speech for tomorrow. The National Award is an important milestone." Helena nodded, turning her attention back to her work. The school project had been nominated in several categories for the National Education Awards, recognizing not only its innovative, pedagogical proposal, but also its social impact through the scholarship program. "I still can't believe we're going to present the project to educators across the country," Helena said, rereading her notes. "Believe me," Bianca replied, sitting down next to her. "You've turned a dream into reality, Lena. You deserve all the recognition." The rest of the afternoon was spent making final preparations. Helena reviewed every detail of the presentation, while Thomas coordinated the team that was finalizing the decoration of the auditorium for the opening. At dusk, when they finally returned to the cottage, they found a surprise. Senora Clara had prepared a special dinner. "You need energy for the next few days," explained the grandmother, serving her famous vegetable soup. "And so does my great-granddaughter." Over dinner, they talked about the past few months, about how everything had changed so dramatically. The cottage, once a temporary refuge, had become a real home full of memories and promise for the future. "Remember when you came here?" asked Mrs. Clara, serving dessert. "So hurt, so lost. And now look at you." Helena smiled, remembering those early days. "It's amazing how life surprises us, isn't it? Sometimes what seems like our worst moment is just the universe redirecting us to something better." "Like that rain on your non-wedding day," Thomas commented, taking her hand across the table. "If it weren't for it, we might never have met." Clara. Helena chose that moment to deliver a particularly strong kick, making Helena laugh. "I think she agrees," he said, guiding Thomas's hand to feel his daughter's movements. Later, after Lady Clara had left and they were getting ready for bed, Helena stood in front of the bedroom window, looking out at the moonlit mansion. "What are you thinking about?" Thomas asked, hugging her from behind. "How everything fell into place so perfectly," she replied, leaning against him. "School, us, the baby. It's like the whole universe conspired for this moment." "And tomorrow is just the beginning," he said, kissing her neck softly. "The first of many recognitions you will receive for your work." Helena turned in, his arms staring at him with bright eyes. "That we will receive. This project is as much yours as it is mine." "Our school, our family, our life," Thomas agreed, stroking her belly. "All ours." The gentle night wind carried the scent of garden, flowers mixed with promises of the future. Helena fell asleep in Thomas's arms, lulled by dreams of classrooms filled with children's laughter, of her daughter growing up among books and discoveries, of a life that had surpassed all her expectations. The large auditorium at the convention center was packed for the National Awards ceremony for educational projects. Helena, sitting in the front row next to Thomas, felt her heart beating fast, a mixture of anxiety for the presentation and Clara Helena's restless movements in her belly. "Take a deep breath," Thomas whispered, squeezing her hand gently. "You look radiant," and she was. Dressed in an elegant navy blue dress that accentuated her pregnancy, Helena exuded a calm confidence that captivated everyone around her. Victoria, sitting on the other side, lovingly adjusted the sash of Helena's dress. "Sophia would be proud," she said softly. "Of the project, of you guys, of everything." Before Helena could answer, the presenter called her name. It was time for her talk about the school project. With Thomas's help, she walked up to the stage and positioned herself in front of the microphone. "A year ago," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I was in a moment that many would call a personal tragedy. Today I understand that it was just the first step in an extraordinary journey." The audience listened in silence as Helena presented the school project, explaining how each space had been designed to stimulate creativity and learning. The photos of the renovated mansion provoked sighs of admiration. "But our greatest innovation isn't in the walls or the equipment," she continued, her face alight with passion. "It's in the way we integrate education, community, and nature. Every child who walks through our doors will find not just a school, but a place where their dreams are taken seriously." While talking about the scholarship program and community involvement, Helena felt a strong contraction. She hid her discomfort by continuing her presentation, but the contractions began to become more frequent. Thomas, who knew her so well, immediately realized that something was wrong. He approached the stage discreetly, ready to intervene if necessary. "And so," Helena said, her voice slightly strained, "we invite you all to our official opening, which will take place." Another contraction, stronger, "which will take place." "Helena?" Thomas stepped onto the stage, worried. "I think Clara Helena has decided she wants to participate in the awards," she whispered, holding her belly. A buzz of excitement ran through the auditorium as people began to understand what was happening. Victoria was already on the phone calling an ambulance, while Bianca ran with the bag they had prepared for this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, taking the microphone, "it appears we have a very special little emergency going." "Don, I ask that you remain calm while—" "No," Helena interrupted, surprising everyone. I need to finish. It's important." Thomas tried to protest, but he knew that determined look well. With his support, Helena returned to the microphone. "As I was saying," she continued, taking deep breaths between contractions, "our school is not just an educational project. It is living proof that endings can be new beginnings, that obstacles can be stepping stones, and that—" She paused, taking another deep breath. "That love, in all its forms, is the greatest transformative force there is." The audience burst into applause. At that moment, as if she had been waiting for the perfect grand finale, Clara Helena decided it was time to be born. What followed was a well-orchestrated choreography of efficiency and care. The awards ceremony's medical team, already alerted, provided first aid as the ambulance arrived. Thomas never left Helena's side, whispering words of encouragement. "We won't have time to get to the hospital," announced one of the doctors after examining Helena. "The convention center has a full medical wing," said one of the event organizers. "We can use it." And so, to everyone's surprise, Clara Helena was born right there, in the convention center, during the country's biggest educational award ceremony. Her first cries were accompanied by emotional applause from hundreds of educators. "She's perfect," Thomas whispered, tears streaming down his face as he held his daughter for the first time. Helena, exhausted but radiant, watched the scene with a smile. She chose the perfect moment for her grand entrance. Hours later, in the hospital room where they were transferred, Helena received a special visit, the president of the awards committee. "I came to present this to you in person," he said, holding up a gold trophy. "Your project won not only the Educational Innovation category, but also the top prize of the event. And if I may say so, today's presentation was the most memorable in the history of the awards." Helena laughed, cradling Clara Helena in her arms. "I guess we now have 2 reasons to celebrate." Thomas, sitting on the edge of the bed, watched his 2 wives adoringly. 3 reasons, he corrected. "The prize, our daughter, and you, my love, always you." 3 days after Clara Helena's birth, Helena was back at the cottage. The little family was welcomed with an intimate celebration hosted by Senora Clara and Victoria, who had transformed the veranda into a garden of fresh flowers. "Welcome home, little Clara Helena," whispered Mrs. Clara, picking up her great-granddaughter. For the first time in the cottage, her eyes shone with excitement as the baby snuggled into her arms. Victoria, who had become a constant and caring presence in recent months, approached with a gift in her hands. It was an antique music box, delicately crafted. "It was Sophia's," she explained, opening the box, which began to play a soft melody. "She always said that one day it would be the first child born on this property." Helena, sitting in her favorite armchair, watched the scene with her heart overflowing with love. Thomas, by her side, could not take his eyes off his daughter. "Tomorrow is the school opening," he said softly. "Are you sure you don't want to postpone it? You just gave birth." Helena smiled, taking his hand. "No way. Clara Helena was born during the award ceremony for a reason. She's as much a part of this story as we are. Besides, everything's already prepared." And it was. The mansion's auditorium was ready to welcome the families of future students, authorities and educators. The classrooms, each decorated with a different theme, were just waiting for the smiles and children's voices that would soon fill their spaces. That night, after everyone had left, Helena was nursing Clara Helena in the bedroom's bay window, watching the full moon illuminate the mansion. Thomas joined them, bringing a cup of chamomile tea. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting down next to them. "How surprising life is," Helena replied, stroking her daughter's dark hair. "A year ago I was preparing for a wedding that never happened. Today I'm here with our daughter in my arms, about to open a school that was just a distant dream." Thomas kissed her forehead softly. "And tomorrow, we begin a new chapter." "Yes," she agreed, watching Clara Helena fall asleep. "A chapter we will write together." The next morning brought with it a special energy. The sun rose in a cloudless sky, as if nature also wanted to participate in the celebration, Helena with Clara. Helena sleeping peacefully in the crib next, to her prepared for the big moment. She chose a light blue dress, elegant and comfortable, a gift from Victoria. Senora Clara had made some adjustments to make it easier to breastfeed, transforming it into a perfect piece for the occasion. "You look beautiful," Thomas said, entering the room already dressed in his dark suit. He paused for a moment, to admire Clara Helena in the crib, unable to resist the urge to gently touch her rosy cheek. "She's so perfect," he whispered in wonder. "Just like Mom," Bianca joked, arriving with a clipboard in her hands. "Sorry to interrupt the family moment, but the first guests are already arriving." Helena took one last look in the mirror, adjusted her dress and carefully picked up Clara Helena. The little girl opened her eyes, revealing deep green irises, identical to her father's. "Come on, my little one," Helena said softly. "Time to see our school." The path from the cottage to the mansion was decorated with flowers and colorful ribbons. Families began to arrive, their excited voices filling the morning air. Children ran through the garden, their eyes shining with anticipation as they saw the imposing building. Victoria was waiting for them at the main entrance, elegant in a pearl-colored ensemble. Her smile was genuine as she took Clara Helena from Helena's arms. "I'll stay with this princess while you guys make your speeches," she offered. "After all, I'm the official doting aunt." Helena handed over her daughter with confidence, knowing that Victoria had become an integral part of their family. Thomas offered his arm, and together they walked up the steps to the front entrance. The auditorium was packed. Smiling faces greeted them with warm applause. In the front row, Mrs. Clara discreetly wiped away a few tears, while Bianca recorded everything with her camera. Thomas took the stand first, his voice thick with emotion. "Many years ago, this place held a dream. Today, thanks to an extraordinary woman who had the courage to start over, that dream has come to life. And there could be no more perfect timing for this dedication than now, when our family is also beginning a new chapter." As Helena took Thomas's place at the pulpit, the auditorium fell silent. She looked at the attentive faces before her, at Victoria gently rocking Clara Helena in the corner, at her grandmother with tears in her eyes, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. "There is an ancient Japanese tradition called kintsugi," she began, her voice clear and emotional. "It is the art of repairing broken objects with gold, transforming their scars into beauty. The repaired object becomes even more valuable and beautiful because of its history, not in spite of it." He paused, his eyes meeting Thomas's. "This school is my kintsugi. When I arrived here, I was broken, thinking my story was over. But I discovered that it was just beginning. Every challenge I faced, every obstacle we overcame, every moment of doubt and faith, all of it turned into gold that now shines on these walls." Victoria approached Clara Helena, who had woken up and was watching everything with her big green eyes. "Our daughter was born during an educational awards ceremony, in the middle of a speech about transformation and new beginnings. There could be no more perfect symbolism, because that's what we want to create here, a place where every child can discover their own strength, where every story of overcoming is celebrated, where every new beginning is an opportunity for growth." Helena made a sweeping gesture, indicating the entire auditorium. "Look around you, every person in..." This room has their own kintsugi story. We are all made of brokenness and mending, of endings that become beginnings, of dreams that reinvent themselves, and that is exactly what makes each of us unique and precious. His eyes met his grandmother's, in the front row. My grandmother taught me that when we sew something with love, we create more than a piece of clothing. We create memories, we create meaning. She was the one who sewed with me the wedding dress that I never wore to a wedding, but that dressed me for the greatest encounter of my life, the encounter with myself. Thomas approached, taking her hand discreetly. And it was here, in this place, that I found not only a new purpose, but a new family. A family that extends far beyond blood ties. It includes every person who contributed to this project, every family who entrusted their children to us, every dream that will be cultivated in these rooms. Clara Helena made a small sound, as if she wanted to participate in the speech, drawing emotional smiles from the audience. "Yes, my little one," Helena smiled. "You are also part of this story. You were born at the exact moment we were talking about transformation, as if you wanted to remind us that the greatest miracles in life happen when we least expect it." Turning to the audience, Helena continued, "This school is not just a renovated building. It is a living symbol that there is always room to start over, to reinvent, to be reborn. Each room was designed to stimulate not only academic learning, but personal growth. Each space was designed to embrace dreams and nurture potential." He paused, looking into the eyes of each person present. "To the parents who have entrusted their children to us, I promise that each child will be seen, heard, and valued as an individual. To the teachers who have joined our team, together, we will create an education that transforms lives. To the community that has welcomed us, this space is also yours, a place of encounter, of growth, of celebration." Victoria approached again, handing Clara Helena into Helena's arms. "And to you, my daughter," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "I promise that you will grow up seeing that endings can be beginnings in disguise, that love comes in many forms, and that dreams, when shared, take wings and fly higher." Thomas joined them, forming a scene that drew emotional sighs from the audience. "I declare the official opening of the Nova Aurora School," Helena concluded, her voice firm, despite the tears of emotion. "May every child who passes through these doors find their own path to light here." The auditorium erupted in applause. Families stood, children ran to the stage, teachers hugged each other. It was more than an inauguration. It was a celebration of a collective dream finally coming to life. After its exciting opening, Escola Nova Aurora quickly became a vibrant hub of learning and discovery. Helena, settling into her new routine as principal and mother, found joy in every little moment. The smiles of the children arriving in the morning, Clara Helena's occasional cry in her office, the teaching meetings that were often interrupted by a curious baby. One particularly busy morning, while organizing preparations for the school's first spring party, Helena received an unexpected visitor in her office. Thomas entered with a mysterious smile on his face. "I need to show you something," he said, picking up Clara Helena from the baby carrier where she was playing with a mobile. "Now?" Helena asked, looking at the pile of work on her desk. "We're in the middle of preparing for the party." "Now," he confirmed, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Bianca can take care of the preparations for a few hours." Intrigued, Helena followed Thomas through the school hallways, watching as he greeted each child by name. Clara, Helena in his arms, gurgled happily, her green eyes shining with curiosity. They walked across the garden towards the cottage, but before they reached it, Thomas turned down a side path that Helena had never noticed before. After a few minutes of walking, they came to a clearing hidden among the trees. Helena stopped in surprise. In the center of the clearing was a structure covered in white cloth. Victoria and Lady Clara were waiting for them there, mysterious, smiles on their faces. "What is it?" Helena asked, her heart racing with anticipation. Thomas handed Clara Helena to Victoria and took Helena's hand. "Remember the day we met? You were sitting on a park bench in the rain, thinking it was the end of everything." Helena nodded, the memory of that day still vivid in her mind. At that moment, he continued, I promised myself that if I had the chance, I would turn every sad moment in your life into something special. With a gesture, she asked Senora Clara to remove the cloth. Helena brought her hands to her mouth, moved. It was an exact replica of the bench in the square where they had met, but transformed into something magical. It was covered in delicate carvings that told its story. A wedding dress in the rain, a cozy cottage, a majestic school, a family being formed. Every detail was hand-carved, Thomas explained, guiding her to take a closer look. Every important moment in our history is here. Helena ran her fingers over the carvings, recognizing scenes. The first kiss during the storm, the moment they discovered the pregnancy, the birth of Clara Helena during the awards ceremony, the inauguration of the school. It's beautiful, she whispered, overcome with emotion. This will be a special place in the school garden, Thomas said, a reminder to all children that endings can be beginnings and that life always has wonderful surprises in store for us. Clara Helena, in Victoria's arms, let out a little laugh as if she understood the importance of the moment. But there's one more surprise, Thomas continued, his smile growing. He knelt before her, taking a small box from his pocket. Helena felt her heart stop for a moment. Helena Silver, he began, his voice shaking slightly with emotion, you have already transformed my life in so many ways that I can hardly count. You have taught me that true love is not about full stops, but about ellipses, about stories that continue to unfold, grow, surprise. Would you do me the honor of continuing to write our story together as my wife? Tears streamed down Helena's face as she gazed at the ring in the box, a delicate piece of white gold with a small pearl, elegant and meaningful. The pearl, Thomas explained, is to remember every single one you sewed into that first dress, because every moment of your life, even the hardest ones, has brought you here, to us. Helena looked around, at Victoria, who was holding her daughter affectionately, at her grandmother, who was crying with emotion, at the bench that told her story of overcoming and love. Her whole world was there, in the small clearing that would now become another special chapter in her story. Yes, she replied, her voice brimming with love and certainty. 1,000 times, yes. Thomas placed the ring on her finger with trembling hands, stood up and kissed her softly. Clara Helena let out a happy little cry, making everyone laugh. She approves, Victoria joked, stepping forward to hug them. Mrs. Clara was next, hugging her granddaughter tightly. Now I can make the dress of your dreams, my girl, the right way for the right love. Helena looked once more at the carved bench, at her family gathered together, at the ring on her finger. Every detail seemed to glow with the promise of a future even more beautiful than the present. The spring party at the new Aurora School coincided with the wedding of Helena and Thomas. It was a unique celebration that brought the school community and family together in an event full of special meaning. The garden was decorated with natural flowers and lanterns, creating a magical atmosphere at dusk. This time, when Helena looked in the mirror dressed as a bride, she saw a completely different woman from the one she had seen a year ago. The dress, lovingly sewn by Senora Clara, was simple and elegant, without a single pearl, because now she knew that her value lay not in the adornments, but in the strength she carried within herself. "It's perfect, Grandma," she said, hugging her grandmother, who was making the final adjustments to the dress. "You look perfect, my girl," Lady Clara replied, adjusting her veil, "because now it is exactly where it should be." Clara Helena, almost 6 months old, looked beautiful in her little white dress matching her mother's. Victoria had taken charge of getting her ready, transforming herself into a doting aunt who spoiled her niece at every opportunity. The ceremony was held in the school garden, next to the carved bench that told her story. The school children participated by throwing flower petals, creating a colorful path along which Helena walked to Thomas. When she reached the makeshift altar, Helena handed Clara Helena into Victoria's arms and took Thomas's hands. Their eyes met, carrying all the love and certainty they had built together. "A year ago," Thomas began his vows, "I saw a woman standing alone in the rain, and I thought I was seeing a reflection of my own loneliness. But you, Helena, were no reflection. You were your own light, strong and bright. You not only brought new life to this property, but also to my heart. With you and our Clara Helena, I learned that family is not something we inherit. It is something we build day by day with love, respect, and much, much joy. Helena took a deep breath, overcome with emotion, before beginning her own vows. Thomas, you met me at what seemed like the end of one story, but was merely the prologue to something much greater. You didn't try to fix my broken heart. Instead, you gave me the space and time to rebuild, and you stood by me through it all. Together, we transformed a derelict mansion into a vibrant school. We transformed scars into strength. We transformed a rainy encounter into a family. And today, I promise to continue this journey of transformation with you every day. Clara Helena chose that moment to let out one of her infectious laughs, making everyone smile. It was as if she also wanted to be part of that special moment. After the exchange of rings and the kiss that sealed the union, the celebration began. The tables were arranged throughout the garden, where families of students, teachers, and friends mingled in a great celebration. Children ran between the tables, their laughter mixing with the soft music that played in the background. Victoria surprised everyone with an emotional speech. When Sophia left, I thought this place would never come back to life. I was wrong. Helena didn't just make Sophia's dream come true. She expanded it, transformed it into something even more special. Today, we're not just celebrating a wedding, but the union of dreams, of purposes, of families. And I couldn't be happier to be part of this story. Later, when night had fallen, and the lanterns illuminated the garden with their soft light, Helena and Thomas danced slowly, with Clara Helena asleep in her mother's arms. "Happy?" Thomas asked, kissing his wife's forehead. "More than happy," Helena replied, looking around. "At peace, complete." And it was true there, dancing under the stars, with her daughter in her arms and her husband by her side, surrounded by her extended family of friends, teachers, and students. Helena finally understood. Sometimes, the greatest act of love we can do for ourselves is to have the courage to start over. The carved bench would remain there in the school garden, telling its story to future generations. A story that did not speak of tragic endings, but of courageous new beginnings. A story that taught that true love is not a fairy tale, but a daily construction of respect, understanding, and mutual growth. And so, under the starry sky of that special night, a new story began. Not a happy ending, but a happy new beginning.